What's up, everybody? Happy New Year, and welcome to an emergency episode of Crush City Territory. I'm Chandler Rome, joined by Tyler Stafford. And Tyler, I'm not sure if it's a harbinger of good or bad to come that our first episode of 2026 is an emergency pod. But here we are after the Astros made, I don't think it's hyperbolic to call this a pretty stunning signing on Thursday. And signing's not even the right word. They have agreed to terms on a 3-year deal with Japanese right-handed free agent pitcher Tatsuya Imai. The deal is a little bit complicated, and we'll get into all the machinations of some incentives, how much money he can make, where this leaves the Astros. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Tyler, first of all, I consider myself somewhat decent at this job. I kind of have a pulse of what's going on. I kind of tend to, be able to tell you guys things. If you listen to me, I guess, if you listen to me hard enough and you listen to like kind of read in between the lines, you kind of understand that I'm trying to tell you the story without telling you the story. This one I had no clue about. And I think this one shocked a lot of people in the industry. It shocked, I talked to some Astros officials today that were a little bit, they said, oh, we had been talking about it a little bit, but they did not know it had progressed to this magnitude. This is a stunner on New Year's Day for the Astros.
Yeah, just when you thought the fireworks were over, right? I mean, they come in here, and then of course Chandler over here. Oh, they're not going to sign a free agent. This man has no idea what he's talking about. Clearly, everybody unsubscribe, like the video before you do, but don't listen to Chandler. He clearly has no clue what's going on. No, I mean, this is awesome. It's a great sign. I hope we do 10 emergency podcasts of the Astros signing big name free agents. This is very exciting. Really, really good pitcher. I'm sure you've seen the story of, when he was posted. Of course, the first thought is Japanese superstar, is now a free agent or is able to sign in MLB. He's going to go to the Dodgers. And I saw the story of him saying, like, no, I don't want to go to the Dodgers. I want to beat the Dodgers. He came to the right place, to the team that knows how to beat the Dodgers. Very, very exciting news.
That remark you're referencing, he made that on I believe it was a podcast in Japan alongside Daisuke Matsuzaka.
Podcast, huh? Let's get him on.
Let's get him on. The former Red Sox pitcher Daisuke Matsuzaka. He had Imai on his podcast, and among the things he said that were interesting, obviously he said the thing about the Dodgers, like, who wants to beat the Dodgers? Like, he did not have like a real big. It wasn't a prerequisite for him that he go to a team with a Japanese presence on it already. But I thought this was interesting to hear him say this. And this is from his podcast interview with Daisuke Matsuzaka. He said, if there were another Japanese player on the same team, I could just ask them about anything, right? But that's actually not what I'm looking for. In a way, I want to experience that sense of survival. When I come face to face with cultural differences, I want to see how I can overcome them on my own. That's part of what I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's rules.
That's an awesome perspective to have. That's an awesome way to go about things. Certainly not, he's not taking the easy way out, so to speak, of just going on a team where he can blend in with, other people in his culture, other people that kind of know what he's going through. He's going to a place in the Astros where he will be the only Asian presence on the team. This is the Astros' first Japanese free agent signing since Kaz Matsui in 2008. And that was not, Kaz Matsui did not come from NPP. Kaz Matsui was already a big leaguer. They signed him. Now, obviously, the Astros have had Nori Aoki on their team. They had Yusei Kikuchi on their team, but those were trades. Those were guys that they just kind of brought in for a little bit. Tyler, in a more macro sense, like, this makes the Astros, players now in the Japanese market, in a kind of a burgeoning free agent market in Japan, where you're seeing more and more guys come over and post, and you're seeing that it's, we've even seen this offseason. Murakami went to the White Sox. It's no longer just they're going to post and go to the Dodgers. there's other teams trying to get in on that windfall, and you have to credit what Ohtani has done. You have to credit in large part a little bit Yamamoto, what he has been able to do and kind of show that these guys can come over and these guys can succeed in MLB. And I think from a macro sense, this puts the Astros, they can now call themselves like legitimate players in Japanese free agency and in NPB, which is a pretty cool thing for them.
Yeah, maybe he has a Daikin air conditioner and he's just, he was excited about that. Yeah, I mean, it's huge news, like you said. Very, very exciting. And you're right. It does kind of open up, the Astros have done obviously a huge amount of success in the kind of Latin American, Caribbean, that side of the world. But yeah, this opens up a whole other part, not just for the Astros, but for MLB in general. I think objectively it is good that Japanese players are able to come over and sign with any team and not feel like they are limited to a handful of options. You mentioned a few, pitchers who are a little bit more current. I think this is a very similar situation to Yu Darvish coming over to Texas, 10, 15 years ago now, where just a superstar over there, but coming to Texas and coming to a place that didn't really have any real Japanese connection. That quote of him saying like, yeah, I want to experience kind of the cultural shock. I know that this is a different part of Asia, and I know it is a very different scenario. But I feel like he and Ryan Weiss will get along really well too, because they both went over and went to a place that didn't have a lot of cultural ties, and Ryan obviously really enjoyed it. When we had him on the pod, he said he was excited to go back, and this is great. And boy, is it not exactly what the Astros team needs for this season. A for real number 2 starter, a guy that can pitch a lot of innings well, and that you can count on. I mean, it's a perfect signing.
Let's break it down from a couple different angles. And before we do that, I'm going to ask you again, please like the YouTube video, guys. It really will help us out. That can be one of your New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a frequent watcher of this podcast on YouTube and you don't just, all you got to do, like look right below the screen. All you got to do is hit the thumbs up. It takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds. All we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to put out there that you're listening. We're not asking you to tweet it, share. We're just asking for a like. The YouTube video. It really helps us out, helps the algorithm, makes our bosses happy, allows us to keep doing this. So that's cool. Now let's kind of talk about how this happened. And a lot of this is a little bit of reading between the lines. A lot of this is talking to some people today that have been involved in this process. Let's start out by acknowledging that the Athletics' Tim Britton, who does a very, very good job of projecting contracts. He takes comps from other guys that have done similar things in the league. He comps free agents to other guys, and he comes up with free agent contract projections before every season. There have been many where he has been dead on in years, dead on in money. He's been a little bit off in some money, but most of the time he's pretty close to reliable. He projected Imai to get 8 years and $190 million. And that was he was not alone in that. There were a lot of people, a lot of, projections that had Imai getting a long-term deal. And Tyler, you and I both know that the Astros are never going to do that. They are never going to give, certainly a pitcher, they're probably never going to give a free agent 8 or 9 or 10 years as long as Jim Crane's the owner. They just don't believe in that. They don't believe in that kind of deal. My understanding is that Imai did have longer offers on the table, that there were I don't know that they were 8 years in length, but there were longer offers on the table with smaller average annual values yearly. But it became clear that he wasn't going to get that sort of contract, the one that Tim projected him for, the one that a lot of other insiders and analysts projected Imai to get. So what do you do when you don't get that? Well, they constructed this deal to where it is essentially a pillow contract. And if you don't know what a pillow contract is, it's kind of one of those contracts that allows a guy to get right back into free agency. So this deal, it's a 3-year deal with opt-outs after each season. So think of it like the Alex Bregman deal with the Red Sox last year. It is a total bet on Imai. It is, if he goes out there and he pitches like a number 2 or a number 1 starter, you know what? He can opt out after this season, go back into a free agent market next year that should be pretty aggressive because, yes, there is a looming lockout, but or what we think will be a looming lockout once the CBA expires. But if you remember back to when the CBA expired in 2022, when there was a lockout, like that was when all the money was changing hands. That was when, Seager got his big deal. That was when Trey Turner got his big deal. I think that was when Correa got both of his $300 million deal. Like, so suffice to say, there is precedent that there will be aggression before and after a lockout. So it really kind of fell into the Astros' lap that this is the exact sort of contract that Jim Crane is okay doing. It's the short term. It's a high-ish AAV. So as of now, for the Astros' luxury tax purposes, Tatsuya Imai's average annual value is $18 million per year. Now, he has $1 million incentives that are in each year that for 80, 90, and 100 innings pitched, he gets $1 million more. So could max out at $21 million a year. That's why, if things happen to where Tatsuya Imai stays for the life of this contract and pitches at least 100 innings in each of the 3 years of this contract, he can max out at $63 million. Now, he has Scott Boras as his representative. I would imagine that they are going to seek a longer term, more lucrative deal if Imai does what I think Scott expects him to do, if Imai does what the Astros expect him to do, which is come here and pitch well. Just come here and establish yourself and assert yourself as a high-end number 2, number 3 starter and pitch well enough to where if you opt out, you can go get the sort of payday that the Astros won't give you, and the Astros will benefit from having you for a year. But Tyler, there is some wonder and some thought, and I think the way his market played out only accentuates it, that he's maybe not the sure thing that Yamamoto was, that people thought Roki Sasaki will be. There are some questions here, but still the upside, I think, was too much for the Astros to turn down, especially when it landed in their lap like this.
Yeah, of course there's questions, but I mean it makes a ton of sense for him too, because like you said, if he's good after a year, somebody is going to give him the contract that he, was projected for this offseason. And also, look, the Astros are in year by year win now mode. They're not in let's sign a guy for 8 years mode right now. If he's great next season and he walks, do they get a qualifying offer? Does that work if you opt out of a contract? I don't know how that works.
I don't know that he'd be qualifying offer eligible. I do not have that in front of me. I need to look that up. I will work that into whatever I write soon. But I will say this, because they signed Imai, it prevented them from, if they were looking in the free agent market, it prevented them from, if Zach Gallen would fall in their lap. He's a qualifying offer guy, same as Ranger Suarez, same as if they would have re-signed Fromber. He does not have a qualifying offer attached to him, so they did all of this while getting to keep all of their draft picks as well, which is something to also be said.
Yeah, and I mean 21 million dollars for, a guy. Let's run through his stats just from last season in Japan. I mean, he had a 1.92 ERA, 163 innings, a whip under 0.9, which is great, and a striking out about 10 per 9. Again, those are not going to translate 1-for-1 over from Japan. But look, man, he throws 95 plus. He's got a great slider. with a lot of glove side run. He throws a changeup like 3 different ways, which is fun. He's got like a Vulcan grip. He's got a splitter grip that he does, a normal changeup grip too. Yeah, it's great. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I've never seen him. I mean, I've seen all the videos that you guys have probably spent all morning watching and looking at. I've seen those. I can't sit here with authority and try to tell you kind of what makes him good, what doesn't make him good. Like I've talked to a couple evaluators in the league that seem to think they're a little bit divided. And you know, in the story that we wrote today, you know, Cody Stavenhagen, friend of the pod and friend of the Foul Territory Network, co-host of Tiger Territory. He talked to a couple guys. He talked to a couple people, you know, while Imai was coming over and while he was posting. Kind of talked to some evaluators about what scared them, what they liked about him, and basically, you know, one National League evaluator told him that, you know, it's good stuff. It's a deep arsenal. He's got about 6 or 7 pitches he can use, but there is some thought that maybe at best he's a number 3 or a number 4. You know, I think certainly this raises the ceiling. This raises the ceiling and raises the floor for the Astros 2026 rotation. This is not, you know, there's always going to be some just the transition's never as seamless as some people make it seem. Like Otani's a freak, like coming over and just doing what he did immediately. It just doesn't happen often. There will be, you know, you saw it, I think, with Kodai Senga with the Mets. There have been, you know, some growing pains with him. I expect there to be some growing pains with Imai. Heck, there were some growing pains with Yoshinobu Yamamoto his first year in Los Angeles, and that's something that I think you come to kind of expect when guys come over from NPB. Like, it's a different baseball. It's a different, you know, the talent level here is just different. It's, you know, MLB is better than NPB. Like, they have better talent. They have better hitters. It's just a better quality of league. So there will be some adjustments. You know, he had a 1.92 ERA in the NPB last year. I would not, you know, look, I think the Astros would be ecstatic if he comes over and has a 1.92 in his first MLB season. You know, I don't think that's going to be the case. But I do think, Tyler, what they have done is they've built out, and just by what they've done this winter, by adding Weiss and Pearson and Burrows and what they have coming back, like, they have enough insurance and they have enough depth to where, you know, they're not going to be counting on this guy to have a sub-3 ERA from the beginning. They've built in and they've built up enough depth for this guy to, you know, he's going to be making a lot of money and he's going to slot in the middle of the rotation. Don't get me wrong. They're not going to baby him, I don't think. But, you know, if the first couple starts don't go well and if they've got to, you know, make some adjustments with him, like, they've got enough around him. They have given themselves enough depth and given themselves enough insurance to where I don't think this guy has to come in and feel the entire weight of the franchise and weight of the team on his shoulders.
Yeah, I wonder if some of the concern is just height wise. I mean, he's listed at 5'11". So, you know, you wonder if maybe that's some of the concern. He has kind of a weird arm slot too. But look, I mean, he's been successful in Japan. It's again, you're right. It is not MLB, but NPB is the second best league in the world. You know, it's not like he's playing nobodies. So yeah, and the contract is perfect because, like you said, maybe the first year is a little rough, and so maybe he doesn't opt out after the first year, but maybe he catches fire in the second year and then opts out after that. And I'm sure the Astros would, again, be more than happy with that. You know, opt-outs are funny because, you know, you don't want somebody to opt out, but at the same time, if they had a season good enough to opt out, you probably had a pretty good season on your team, and you'll take it. So, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense for both sides.
Yeah, like, as you said, like, the Astros right now are not, they can't be like, they should be, but they can't be thinking about 2027 and 2028. Like, they want to win this season. Like they've got to prioritize this season, having the 2026 Astros ready to win and put themselves in a position to be ready to win. And I think this helps in that endeavor greatly. We talked about, and one thing that's kind of been bouncing in my head, we talked about how the Astros have not had a footprint in the Japanese market in a long time. They did acquire Yusei Kikuchi in 2023. And look, Yusei Kikuchi's left-handed, Imai is right-handed. They have some similar characteristics in their arsenal. Yusei is about 6 foot, 6'1". Imai is about 5'10", 5'11". They've got some of the same pitch mix and they've got some of the same stuff, but to say that they are the exact same pitcher is disingenuous. But it has had me thinking, Yusei Kikuchi is represented by Scott Boras, just as Tatsuya Imai is. I talked to Scott Boras during that 2 months when we were in Anaheim, when Kikuchi made a start in Anaheim. I talked to Scott about kind of what the Astros had done with Kikuchi, and he was, I wrote about it at The Athletic, like he was very impressed. It impressed him kind of the plan they had for him, that making him comfortable, and we all saw what Kikuchi was able to do down the stretch. He parlayed that into a big payday with the Angels. So while they maybe haven't had the footprint from an NPB perspective of signing those guys, of being legitimate contenders for those guys, Scott Boras got an up close and personal look at what the Astros pitching development infrastructure can do with a Japanese pitcher that has at least some of the same profile as Imai. I wonder how much that played into this. Just the fact that the Astros have had success in tinkering and allowing him to come in. Talk about transitions. Like Yusei's transition into the Houston clubhouse was seamless. Didn't know anyone. They didn't have any Japanese players. Kind of came in very blind, and they welcomed him with open arms. The pitching coaches and the analytic team was able to distill some stuff down for him, and he was able to have one of the greatest runs of his career. Look, at the end of the day, this all comes down to money. 99% of the time, these negotiations come down to money. They come down to who has the best offer. They come down to all that stuff. But don't discount Kikuchi's 2 months here. I think that left a resonating presence with Scott Boras. I think it left a resonating presence with a lot of people in the industry that we've known for a long time that the Astros do a very good job of identifying, developing, and helping pitchers. I think that put it on a bigger stage, a bigger platform. And I wonder how much maybe that had at least something that could be a feather in the Astros cap when it got down to this and they realized that this could be a possibility.
Yeah, and I think I also saw that the Astros scouted him like out of high school too, that they've had some sort of relationship. Right? Is that correct?
Imai or Kikuchi?
I believe Imai, right? I think I saw somewhere.
They did scout. They scouted Kikuchi when he was coming over as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they scouted Imai as well. The other thing I will say is that the Astros have, and the only reason I know this is because I literally get emails, those LinkedIn sponsored emails, because I follow some of the people I follow some of the Astros front office members on LinkedIn, just as you would normally do, and they are posting for like Asian Pacific Rim like scouts. So this is not just a one-off thing. Like they are trying to get a deeper footprint in that market. And I think Kikuchi helped. I think seeing what he can do and what that was like, having him for 2 months, kind of the exposure that got. And then I know we joked about it at the beginning, but I can't separate myself from like, Daikin bought the naming rights to the ballpark in January or February. So we're coming up on about a year that Daikin has bought the naming rights. And I think Jim Crane on that day or in the days afterward, did make some mention of, now that we have this, maybe we can be a bigger player in that pool. And I'm not saying that the two are one is a direct result of the other. I don't think they signed Imai because they're now called Daikin Park, but don't think that doesn't have anything to do with it, because there were multiple times this year where there were guests of Jim Crane that were from the Japanese hub of Daikin, where Daikin is founded and located, is in Japan, in Osaka, Japan. There were many homestands where on a couple of occasions, Jim had a Japanese contingent from Daikin that was showing around, sat in the suite with him at the games. So like, don't discount that either. That certainly could have at least been somewhat of a factor in this.
Yeah, and I've covered a few Astros games when Ohtani was with the Angels, and I'm sure you can speak to this, but anytime Ohtani is playing somewhere, there is a humongous Japanese media contingency, or at least, in the first couple of years that he was here. I'm sure it's still the same, but those first couple of years when he came over, they were live broadcasting all of his games back in Japan. And look, the Angels were playing the Astros 18 games a year, and people in Japan saw the Astros just dominate for years while Ohtani was the biggest thing in Japanese baseball. So that certainly could have something to do with it, as well as, okay, this team is obviously very good. They've seen that a lot. Is he going to be on the World Baseball Classic team? Do you know?
I haven't looked.
I looked. I didn't see his name, but I'm not sure that they've fully announced their roster yet. That'd be fun.
I mean, I think there will be a press conference with Imai within the next couple of days. So I'd imagine he will be asked that when he meets the media here in Houston. I do not know that off the top of my head, but it would stand to reason that if he wants to play, I don't see why the Astros would say no. But
yeah,
because
that'd be fun.
Because Jim Crane, Daikin Park is hosting the WBC.
Yeah,
like Jim Crane is a fan of the WBC. Like I don't think the team is going to stand in the way of any player that wants to play. And
now, my only concern is with all of the technology talk from this year. Do we know that he is real? His last name is Imai. So that's one concern that I have, that we haven't seen him in person. So that's why I'm looking for the WBC to make sure.
I don't even know how to follow that one up. It is weirding me out though that the Rockets coach is Ime Udoka, and
that's
this guy
good.
is Imai. So I'm having to separate those two in my head. I did some radio this past week and we talked a lot of Rockets, and I kept saying Ime and Ime, so I have to get Imai in my head now. Was writing something that will probably go live tomorrow morning. I don't know. It's a holiday. No one's reading, so who knows when it'll go live. But if anything, Tyler, this accentuates there's going to be some competition in spring training. They've got, I mean, this is a good problem to have, don't get me wrong, but they've almost got too many starters. We have talked that they will probably have to run a 6-man rotation to start the year with 25 games in 27 days. You start to kind of fill it out. Now you've got 4 spots just about guaranteed with Hunter Brown, Tatsuya Imai, Mike Burrows, and Christian Javier. And then it's Ryan Weiss, Nate Pearson, Lance McCullers, Spencer Arrighetti, AJ Bluebaugh, Colton Gordon, Jason Alexander, all for 2 spots to open the season, then probably 1 spot, when they get into a 5-man. So look, injuries always happen.
Can you imagine how good of a problem that would be if the Astros had too many starters? I'd be so excited. What are we going to do with all these guys?
Right. This is a good problem to have. First and foremost, this is not an issue. This is not something they have to go fix. This is good. If they go to the spring training with this, be fine. But it's going to underscore that there's going to be some tough conversations that have to be had. Ryan Weiss was on this pod a month ago and pretty emphatically said, I ain't a reliever. I'm a starter, and I took this to start. Nate Pearson said one of the reasons that he signed with the Astros was because they're going to let him start. You have the Lance McCullers Jr. situation. That's also there.
Also making $18 million.
Correct. 17, but also represented by Scott Boras. You've got Spencer Arrighetti, who was excellent the second half 2 years ago, but really hasn't. So there's a lot of difficult conversations to be had.
Yeah, who cares? That's a future problem. We'll figure that out later. I don't care. I'm excited that they have this many pitchers. Can you imagine 2 months ago us saying, what are the Astros going to do with all this starting pitching depth? This is a great problem to have. Go get another one. Keep doing it.
Well, I was about to say everyone can stop asking me about Justin Verlander. I would imagine this closes that door.
I don't know. Are they over the luxury tax now? Who cares? Just go get him.
We're getting to that. Good thing
Okay.
you brought it up. The door for Justin Verlander to come to Houston was open. It always is. I think it's closed a little bit more now, but was a thing earlier in the offseason. Just weren't lined up money wise. As I understand it, the official luxury tax number for Imai's contract, the AAV this year is $18 million. Now, if you go to Cott's contracts, I'm doing this on the fly and seeing if they have updated it yet. I do not believe they have updated their spreadsheet yet, which is actually good. So before this agreement was put into place, according to Cott's contracts, the Astros were about $22.2 million under the first luxury tax. If the AV hit is $18 million, as I'm told that's what the official luxury tax hit will be, they are still under, not by much. They do want to get a backup catcher, which is going to cost money. I would not be surprised if there is another trade a la what they did with Ryan Presley last year. You can kind of start to trace a little more parallel to last year, right? They signed Christian Walker and they got up near the luxury tax, but they weren't all the way, they weren't over it yet. And it was just like, all right, well, they still need to make some room. So they shipped Ryan Presley. They found an expendable high salary, shipped Ryan Presley, paid down some of it, and he went to Chicago. Would not be surprised if there is another trade of that ilk, one that they find someone with a substantial-ish salary to get them a little further under the tax. We'll continue to reiterate, it would likely come from the infield, come, one of Isak Paredes or Christian Walker. Remember, Ryan Presley had a $14 million salary when they traded him last year. Now, the Astros paid down, I believe, $6 million of it, but they got $8 million off their books. Everyone, the Jake Myers conversation, I know we had that all winter, but he's only going to make about $4 million in arbitration. I'm not sure.
Jesus Sanchez is making $6 million.
Right. So maybe you look at a Jesus Sanchez, also represented by Scott Boras. We've got so much Scott Boras over.
This guy must be a big agent. I've never heard of this man. Is he a big deal?
He's kind of a big deal. I hope so. He will 100% be at this news conference whenever it is next week.
Can you tell him about my writing? Can you ask him if I can get on that?
I'll slip your business card.
Thank
but
you.
Also, one of my favorite things about Scott is that he color coats his suits and his blazers to whatever the team he is going to sit on the dais for. He wore a beautiful green blazer when the Mariners introduced somebody that he had. He'll wear red if he goes to the Phillies or something. I hope he shows up in a neon orange blazer.
I hope he shows up dressed like Orbit. That'd be awesome.
That would be great. That would be great.
Big old shoes, big green jacket. That'd be great.
Yeah. But so trades. Jesus Sanchez, obviously, now, not that he ever wasn't a trade candidate, but I think now you start to look at him as that's going to be about a $6-7 million. That could help you get under. That. But, they still have to, solve the infield logjam. I do still wonder, just for practicality and for roster purposes and keeping everyone happy and keeping everyone content, it would seem that one of Walker or Paredes would be the guy in terms of substantial amount of money you can move. Two guys that are expendable. I know you fans would not like if Isak Paredes got traded, but there is no place for him to play regularly on this current iteration of the roster. So
he's playing winter ball.
Makes him expendable,
right?
Yes, he's playing winter ball. Yeah.
What? Didn't his leg fall off? Why is he not sleeping in a cryo chamber somewhere? How's he out just playing winter ball? I mean, I know he came back for 2 days at the end of last season, but that guy just loves ball. He's out there just playing winter ball.
He loves ball. Does love ball, but
So yeah, Isak's making 10, Christian Walker's making 20, Christian Javier's making 21, Lance McCullers is making 17. You do have some bigger name guys, but I mean, clearly Jesus Sanchez is. There's no way the Astros start the season with him on the roster with the way that they're constructed currently. You got two left fielders already. You've got
do you?
Zach. Yeah, you got Altuve and Jordan. Like that left field
Both
spot.
of whom, like the manager has literally said out loud, I do not want either of them playing left field.
Well, too bad. that's what your roster is. Figure that out later. But those are your left fielders. You've got some log jams there. I don't see a spot for Jesus Sanchez, even if he had, performed a little bit better. I think that's one that you can look at. You've got, like I've said, I know they're not going to do this, but Brian Abreu to me makes a ton of sense as a trade chip, just because this is the last year of his contract. He's a huge reliever. He's making $5 million. I could see a scenario where you could include Brian Abreu with a salary dump as well, because he's obviously way undervalued at $5 million. There's certainly ways to get value there too. But man, what a rotation all of a sudden. Where did this come from?
Jim Crane's wallet, man.
Yeah.
Money's
all it takes is money. This is easy.
Money. Yeah, it's just money.
Just pay the good players. It's not that hard.
I'm going to reiterate again. Two things can be true. Their rotation today is far better than it was at any point in 2025. Mm-hmm. At any point toward the end of 2025, their rotation is better today. But there is no guarantee that Imai just completely becomes this force of a number two. The reason why he fell into the Astros' laps, the reason why he was willing to take a deal like this is because of the uncertainty, is because of there was market uncertainty. There was uncertainty within the sport as to how well he will translate here. And this qualifies as a gamble by the Astros, but I think it's a sensible one. I think it's a practical one. I think you're gambling on a guy that has proven he can pitch at the highest level. We've talked about MLB is a little bit. MLB is a better league than NPB, but it's not. His stats are nothing to slouch at. He has pitched. He has been durable. He has been able to succeed at the professional level. The Astros just have to hope that the learning curve is not as steep for him as it can be for some NPB guys.
I'd prefer you not to use all three words of Japanese translate and gamble in the same sentence when talking about a baseball player. Let's keep that out of here. But yeah, I mean, of course it's a gamble. I mean, but yeah, you're right. This makes a ton of sense for where the Astros are at currently. It makes a ton of sense for Imai as well. Imai, you did this to me. I wouldn't have had that in my head unless you did it. This is your fault. I'm upset with you now.
Well, that's a perfect way to end the first podcast of 2026. Mm-hmm. Tyler complaining that he's upset with me. Well, this was not how I envisioned my New Year's Day going, but alas, this is only a harbinger of great things to come for the next 364 days of this year, during which we will be around to talk about the Astros, talk about Tatsuya Imai, and to talk about this revamped rotation, including a special guest later this week to discuss that revamped rotation. But until then, you can follow me on X at Chandler_Rome. You can follow Tyler at Tyler C. Stafford. As always, please rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And as always, like the video. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can get notified anytime we go live or anytime we post a new pod. We should have gone live today. That should have been today could have been, again, it's New Year's Day. Everybody's watching Texas Tech play with themselves against Oregon. It's not going well for them. Sorry for them, but everyone's watching that. No one's listening to this. So we could have done a live, see how it goes, but we'll do one of those soon at some point. Maybe in the next week or so we'll do one. But until then, we will talk to you soon. We appreciate you guys listening. Hope everyone had a safe New Year's Eve and a happy New Year's Day to all of you, to a prosperous and fruitful 2026. Thank you guys for listening.
Imai.